Good evening, everyone. I'm Mason Simpson.
And I'm Kelsey Leffingwell. Welcome back to a very special episode of Sneak Peek. We've got a lot in store for you tonight.
That's right, Kelsey. In tonight's episode, Simi sits down with documentarian Ileana Sosa about her award-winning film, What We Leave Behind.
Then, Robbie and Nick spotlight some talented student filmmakers who are creating truly astonishing work right here at the University of Texas.
And Ryan will round out the show with a special segment dissecting the history behind Richard Linklater's debut film, Slacker, filmed right here on the streets of Austin.
As always, we'll be covering the best in arts, culture, and entertainment news, ranging from local to worldwide, from small indies to big budget blockbusters.
Stay tuned, because this is your sneak peek. Kelsey, did you watch the Met Gala last night?
I certainly did. This year's Met Gala had fashion designers dress celebrities in outfits inspired by the Gilded Age. While not everyone seemed to understand the assignment, there were plenty of outfits that followed the theme very well.
The celebrity that probably best fit the theme was Riz Ahmed, who made a powerful statement with his white muscle shirt underneath a navy blue silk top and black boots, announcing his outfit as an homage to the immigrant workers who kept the Gilded Age going.
Blake Lively, Billie Eilish, and Megan Thee Stallion were among the stars who showed up in glamorous Gilded Age type dresses, with Blake in a dress inspired by the era's architecture, Billie in a corseted bodice, and Megan in a golden gown.
There were some outfits that did not entirely follow the theme, but were amazing nonetheless, such as Olivia Rodrigo's sparkly purple backless dress with matching butterfly hair clips.
Several Marvel stars, including Sebastian Stan, Tessa Thompson, and Gemma Chan, were also in attendance at the Met Gala. Have you been hearing all the recent news about the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I have. I recently heard that the president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, recently went on a retreat with the Marvel creative team to plan out the next 10 years of MCU projects.
Other recent news about the largest franchise in the world concerns Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. The rights to the Fantastic Four films were previously owned by Fox, but following the Disney-Fox merger, the team is being welcomed into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We might have to wait a bit longer, though. Jon Watts, the director of Spider-Man: Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, was supposed to direct the project, but it was reported recently that he has left the director's seat. Watts is currently working on a film for Apple TV Plus with George Clooney and Brad Pitt, but it's unclear if a scheduling conflict is what made him leave the project. Fans are speculating on who will be the next director, with Brad Bird, the Daniels, and Peyton Reed on many wish lists.
Peyton Reed's next Marvel venture, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, has also had some news. The film swapped its release date, and now the third Ant-Man film will release on February 17th, 2023, while The Marvels, starring Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, will release on July 28th, 2023.
There's so much Marvel news, and I'm sure the whole Marvel landscape will change after this weekend's new release, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which comes out this Friday, May 6th.
Also on the Met Gala red carpet was Late Late Show host James Corden, who expanded upon the recent announcement that he will be leaving the Late Late Show in 2023.
Corden described the announcement as really hard, saying it would be an emotional year as he begins working on his final episodes of the show.
Another talk show host also is departing from their show. Ellen DeGeneres recently taped her final episode of Ellen after 19 seasons. The final episode is set to air May 28th.
Ellen has been surrounded by controversy since accusations of a toxic work environment were raised. In a post on social media, Ellen claims that the ending of her show was not a result of the scandal, but rather because she didn't feel challenged anymore.
Either way, I'm curious to see how either of these shows continue after their hosts leave.
Me too. Unfortunately, though, that's all the time we have for tonight's news desk. Moving on, our first segment of the night is from Simi, who got the chance to sit down with Ileana Sosa, who recently had her documentary, What We Leave Behind, premiere at South by Southwest.
What We Leave Behind premiered to critical acclaim and won 2 awards at South by Southwest, the Fander New Voices Directional Effort and the Lewis Black Lone Star Award for Achievement by a Texan Filmmaker.
Let's hear what she had to say about the film.
Hello, I'm Simi Sharipe. I am with Sneak Peek. Here at Sneak Peek, we cover arts and culture from all over the world. Seeing as we're in Austin, Texas, we are so fortunate to be in the center of cultural creativity, particularly in film. So today, we are here with Ileana Sosa, a professor from the University of Texas, to talk about her new documentary, What We Leave Behind, which received accolades at this year's South by Southwest conference. Let's check it out.
My name is Ileana Sosa. I'm an assistant professor in the RTF department, and I'm also a filmmaker. I make fiction and documentary films. So What We Leave Behind is my first feature documentary, and it follows my grandfather, Julian Moreno. He was 89 when he decided to build a house in his little town in the north of Mexico in Durango. And so the film follows the last year of his life and the construction of this house and my relationship with him. So I started this project 7 years ago, and I wanted to document the oral history of my grandfather. He was a bracero. During World War II, the U.S. government contracted Mexican farm workers to work the fields all over the U.S., and my grandfather was one of these men. Many of these men have passed, and so have their stories have gone with them. So I wanted to focus on that oral history and documenting that work that he did, but also my grandfather would always take monthly bus trips from the north of Mexico to El Paso, Texas, where I'm from. And he did this for about 20 years, and so he'd always come visit us every month, and I also wanted to document those bus trips and get to know him and his stories. Watching the footage over and over again, it was very difficult, especially during the sound mix. When he got really sick, I wasn't going to film. A friend of mine just encouraged me. She said, "Oh, why don't you take a small camcorder or your phone and film?" So I did in the moments that I felt that was appropriate and that I wanted to, but I didn't film a lot of things. And my editor, Isidore Bethel, and I were really mindful of what to include and what not to include. We didn't want to show things that we didn't necessarily have to in terms of his decline. So we were very particular to be, very specific in what we wanted to show and just be respectful of him and my family. I think it's important to be in the classroom and have someone that looks like you, but also understands the challenges that come with being in film school as, a person of color. I think it takes a certain vulnerability, just be a filmmaker, period. I don't think you need to wait for someone to, give you an opportunity to make a film, especially documentary film. The beauty of it is that there's access to equipment. Even if it's on your phone, or especially that students have access here. I tell them, don't wait. If you have a project that you really want to get started, start now. Even if you don't finish it within a scope of a classroom, right? But that's I really want to encourage students to just go out and make things, and even if they might not turn out the way that you expect the first time around, but to keep that practice going, and I think that makes you a stronger storyteller all around.
Thanks, Simi. What We Leave Behind is currently in the process of acquiring distribution, so be on the lookout for the film.
Up next, we'll be hearing from some exemplary student filmmakers, so stay tuned. Hey Kelsey, do you remember the old Disney show, Kim Possible?
Of course, I loved that show growing up and just recently rewatched it on Disney+.
UT film student Xavier Ingram also rewatched the show during the pandemic, and it inspired him to make his own short film based on the animated series.
I heard about that. Xavier hosted a showcase not only to premiere his film, but also to spotlight short films made by filmmakers from underrepresented groups.
Our very own Robbie got to attend the showcase and interview Xavier about the event. Let's see it, Robbie.
Last month, University of Texas student Xavier Ingram hosted a student showcase, premiering a multitude of short films from his fellow students. The showcase ended with Ingram's own film, Kim Possible and Raw Unstoppable, a fan film based on the popular 2000s Disney cartoon. I got the chance to attend the showcase and speak with Xavier afterwards.
My name is Xavier Ingram. I'm a second-year RTF major. I write, direct, produce screenplays. I act a little bit. I also do stand-up. The project's been in the making for over a year. I had the idea during winter of 2020. It was quarantine time, peak quarantine, and I had gotten Disney Plus and I started binging Kim Possible because it was one of my favorite shows growing up. And once I finished it, I just had this creative, urge to just make something with it. Turned from something very simple into something that was much bigger than what I originally anticipated. And I made my own world, my own interpretation of the characters and everything. And it turned into a whole half-hour narrative short film. And I spent the summer getting a lot of my friends together to make a crew, get some actors, and we put it together.
I mean, filming was the best part. I mean, I can't really, nothing beats that. And getting everybody together and just, all spending 5 days, 12 hours each day, just going out and filming stuff.
Very, very excited, but also very nervous, which is just making me overall anxious, but in a good type of way, because I'm very proud of this. I feel like it's very good. It's really just going to be a chance for people to see what I do and what kind of films I like to make and what I have in store. And I'm just looking forward to it, really.
Suffice to say, Ingram's event was a huge success. The crowds loved it. Everybody cheered and clapped as his film played and ended.
Is that it? Good? We're good.
Thanks, Robbie.
I really love hearing from passionate student filmmakers about their processes. I know the pandemic affected a lot of us, especially in terms of the on-set experiences, so it's inspiring to see our peers going above and beyond.
I know. It's hard as a student finding that work-life balance, but especially as a film major, balancing creative work with schoolwork can be tough. But we're in luck. Our very own Nick hosted a panel with these exceptional student filmmakers here at the University of Texas to hear about their experiences, their work, and what problems they face as students.
Let's hear it, Nick.
Just wanted to ask first off, for all of you, what would y'all hope to achieve with the films that y'all made?
I feel like there's two things. One is just entertainment, because film, at the end of the day, is a form of entertainment. So just a way of, making you, get in the inside of a new world, and just to get out of your own reality for a bit. And two, just to tell compelling stories.
I guess the goal was kind of to make a horror film that's not stereotypically horror. I like coming up with things that scare people in ways they don't know why they're afraid, but they are.
I think with this specific film that I just worked on, which for women only, a really big imperative for us was to tell a story for women by women. It's a coming of age story about an age demographic that isn't usually given that screen time for that genre, and involve only women, non-binary people, trans people, really people of just underrepresented genders in the industry behind the camera. I think that just, an unfortunate reality of the film industry is that there are certain departments that women are kind of just systemically excluded from. And so we really, with our set, wanted to create an environment for non-male filmmakers to come and learn about those things, you know.
And Dalton, I know that with yours, you work with a very limited crew, limited only to being mostly yourself.
Yeah, like it does have its benefits, but it's also really, it can be overwhelming. There was just so many things to sort out, and it was almost a conscious choice going into this one alone because I knew I was going to have to do so much learning during the process that if I got somebody else involved, I might disappoint them. You know, I started making these movies alone during quarantine, and then that impulse to just keep doing it is pretty strong sometimes, but it's don't do that, because if you work with people, you can make something better than you can make by yourself. And so I'm trying to fight that impulse, but on top of that, I commute to campus from North Austin, which kind of widens that gap even more.
In behalf of all of the low-income minorities, you know, seeing the usual, you know, film student with, you know, expensive equipment and everything, it's quite intimidating. But then I have thought, you know, this many times, and it's like, just because you have a better camera doesn't mean that you're a better filmmaker than I am, or a better storyteller than I am. And, you know, before I even started doing those comparisons, it's like, you know, we're all on the same level, you know. So even though it is intimidating and there is a certain disparity between some of the student filmmakers, I feel like in some ways we're on the same level. And that really helps battle my imposter syndrome, you know, very frequently.
I've really got one final question for all of you. You're all students here at UT. You're all student filmmakers. Has it been hard to kind of balance that student life, social life with being a filmmaker?
And I think that it's like a universal experience in film, in the film program, to be like, oh, I have to miss this class because I'm on set. Or like, oh, I haven't turned this assignment in because I'm on set.
Yeah.
But luckily, I at least in my experience, like a lot of my film professors have been pretty understanding of that. So it's been fine, but yeah, it's definitely something that I've not mastered and I don't know if I ever will.
Right.
What about you guys?
What about you, Marlon?
I feel like it's definitely a struggle to balance everything. But at the same time, every time I'm doing a film or, you know, whether it's for class or just my passion project, even though it takes like a lot of time, like I enjoy it, you know, because, you know, that's what I want to do for, you know, the rest of my life. So yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's stressful, but like I enjoy it.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been an honor to talk to each of you. Some of the greatest student filmmakers that we've got at UT. It's been awesome to have you on this panel.
Welcome back. Last month, our very own Ryan got to interview Richard Linklater at the South by Southwest red carpet for Linklater's new film, Apollo 10½: A Space-Age Childhood.
I saw that. Linklater's advice for student filmmakers to just go out there and make films with materials available was very inspiring.
Ryan was particularly inspired to revisit Linklater's debut cult classic shot here on the streets of Austin, 1990's Slacker.
Slacker was filmed here on the streets of Austin, particularly in the West Campus area, a neighborhood predominantly occupied by students attending the University of Texas like myself. It's really inspiring seeing a film made in such relatable circumstances, which got me wondering, what kind of resources did Linklater have access to when making Slacker? What kind of film community was there in Austin at that time? And how has the city changed both physically and culturally since the film's release? In order to get more information on the history of Austin's film scene, I went and met with Lars Nielsen, the lead programmer at the Austin Film Society, or AFS. Nielsen was also one of many who moved to Austin after seeing Slacker in its original theatrical run.
Austin had really had a film scene for years before. There was an organization called Cinema Texas that had existed on campus that was really unique and different because they were doing screenings, multiple screenings every week. And it was really world-class programming. It was programming that was globally aware of the trends going on at the time, not only of new films, but also of an understanding of how to contextualize older films. That's a big part of what attracted Richard Linklater to Austin, is Cinema Texas and what Cinema Texas was doing.
In the summer of 1989, production began on Slacker, a mosaic of counterculturalism and youth in Austin that utilizes a narrative technique where it moves from character to character and story to story, never focusing on anyone for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. In order to get more context on Slacker's production, I talked with Charles Ramirez Berg, a professor of film studies at the University of Texas and a member of the Austin Film Society's board at its inception. He also got to be an extra in the film when he happened upon the production at a local half-price books.
And I realized there was a crew, a very small crew making a film. I thought, oh, it's probably some RTF students doing one of their projects or something. And then I looked, and it was Rick, and he's real modest. He said, yeah, I'm making this little film, and I've been shooting around town, and it was a big success in Austin. And then, it was a big success everywhere.
Slacker premiered at the Dolby Theater on July 27, 1990, and was acquired by Orion Pictures for a nationwide release that occurred almost a year later, on July 5, 1991. The film was a huge hit, grossing over 53 times its small $23,000 budget. It followed a wave of successful independent cinema prominent in the late 1980s and early 1990s, started by films like Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It and Steven Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
The early 90s were not the beginning of indie cinema by any means, but it was sort of the beginning, in a way, of indie cinema as being seen as something that could put money in the bank for film distributors or film producers. It became apparent that one could credibly buy low, sell high among independent films and make a profit.
What made Austin, I think, a film city was Rick's next movie, Dazed and Confused. After the success of Slacker, he gets a chance to make for a studio. In those days, if Hollywood said, come, you went. And that was it, because that's where everything was. That's where all the talent is. That's where all the technology is. That's where all the equipment is, the studios, the money. That's where you go. And everybody's ambition is to make it to Hollywood, right? And once again, Rick goes the other way. They wanted him to make, come to Burbank and make your movie. And he said, no, I think we ought to make it here. That decision, I think, changed everything because it indicated and it proved that you don't have to go to Hollywood to do it.
Back then, this was a risky decision. Despite being the capital city of Texas and having a nationally recognized university, Austin still was considered by many to be a relatively small town. In 1989, when Slacker was filmed, Austin had a population of only around 546,000 people. Today, Austin has a population of over 2 million.
Austin was a college town. It wasn't a big city. It was a college town. If you went beyond Burnett Road and like 183, that was kind of it. Beyond that is country, and there's nothing. So now we're a big city, and people talk about it as a big city. And more things are happening in this big city. So Tesla, is here. Samsung is here. Amazon is here. All of that. And I think those of us who are old timers grow without losing your identity. I think that's the fear that we'll get so big that you won't be able to tell the difference between Los Angeles and New York City and Austin. Okay, I'm hoping that never happens.
Even during Slacker's production, Austin was a city of contradictions. In the opening frames of the film, we see the transition from rural to urban, and throughout the course of the narrative, we're constantly confronted with the city defined by its rural roots, but growing into something much larger. The city exists within an infamously conservative state, but the politics of its characters in comparison are quite progressive. The film's characters warn others about the dangers of imminent global warming, argue against anti-democratic voting restrictions, and vehemently protest working for a paycheck rather than passion. As Austin continues to grow, the contradictions only become more extreme, and some mourn the loss of the city they once knew.
People often sort of say, well, the Austin of 1990 isn't there anymore, it's gone away, that it's over.
When asked about whether or not he agrees with those thoughts, Nielsen said this.
There's a certain kind of Austin that you only really see and perceive when you're young. You can no longer hear those frequencies at a certain time. I do think that if a film like Slacker today was made, it would just be more noise, probably. It would be hard for it to jump the fence into commercial cinema.
Austin has a unique culture that's hard to replicate in larger cities and hard to miss when you're within the city limits. That's part of Slacker's success. Linklater's not an outsider coming into Austin and making a film about its people. He's making a love letter to his city with his friends. The film is expertly and carefully crafted, but its easygoing tone, which reflects the passive attitudes of its characters, make the film seem achievable to any aspiring filmmaker.
Austin does have a streak of, we might say, counterculturalism that has always attracted from other cities, particularly in Texas, the oddballs, the weirdos, and I think that in many ways, Slacker is a poem about that particular kind of energy. Not even necessarily those people, but that kind of energy that exists in Austin.
Considering how much the Austin film scene has grown since its release, it's hard not to see Slacker's impact on the community. Whether large productions are filming in Austin studios, or small student sets are filming on the streets of Austin, there's a creative spark that is embodied in Slacker and still continues today. As the Austin film industry continues to grow, the city will continue to fight to hold on to what makes it unique, even in the face of gentrification, industrialization, and rapid expansion. For Sneak Peek, I'm Ryan Schwen.
Thanks, Ryan.
That's all from us tonight, but make sure to tune in every Tuesday night at 7:30 to catch all the latest entertainment news.
I'm Kelsey Leffingwell.
And I'm Mason Simpson.
See you next week, Sneak Peekers.